And welcome to the Alouettes Flightdeck, podcast dedicated to Montreal. It's football presented by our friends over at SportBuff. Where if you use the promo code Owls Flightdeck10 at checkout, you will save 10% off your entire order. So head over to sportbuffshop.com. I am Tim Capper. You can find me on X at Repact. It's REPPACT.
And I'm Cliffy D. You can also find me on X over at Cliffy D.
How are you, buddy? Did you considering the stuff that's been going on in Montreal, first and foremost, we want to send all of our thoughts and stuff to all of our friends. We know there's some Alouette employees that were involved in this too, and that flood was nothing to laugh at, was it? That happened on Friday, that affected quite a bit of Alouettes Nation from Montreal on east. All the way up to parts of northern Quebec.
Yeah, it was like we got hit with about a month's worth of rain in one day. I mean, it was just ridiculous. But yeah, it's definitely tough. I mean, I'm seeing all these places just being absolutely flooded, like basements being flooded, anything like that. Like, I mean, it's tough to see. And yeah, my obviously thoughts go out to everybody that's going through this. Especially, hearing that, members of the Alouettes organization, members of Alouettes Nation have also gone through it as well. I mean, all we can tell you is, hopefully, if you're listening to this and you're looking for a little bit of distraction, hopefully we can provide that for you and just kind of take your mind off things, even for just a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of the rain, we actually spoke with Mark Whitman post-game for the Owls win over the Tiger Cats this past week. And we asked the question, if the game had been played on Friday night instead of Saturday, do you think the game would have been played? Even he wasn't sure if the game would have been played that night.
Because there was no lightning. I did hear a couple of thunderclaps, but didn't see any lightning. So, I mean, that is kind of the rule. Like, I mean, it could rain, cats and dogs nonstop. And in theory, you could still play it. The minute there's lightning involved, that's when they take teams off the field and they don't continue. So, I mean, if it was raining like that, I mean, it would have sucked. I mean, you definitely would have seen a lot of the ground game.
Yeah,
that's for sure. I mean, it just with the amount of rain that fell and just didn't stop falling. Yeah, it would have been a very tough watch. And I don't think you would have gotten over 20,000 fans to sit in that kind of torrential downpour to watch this team win, lose, or draw.
Yeah, we've seen a quote unquote good day for a rain game. It was how many years ago? It was Thanksgiving where it just rained the entire time. How many years ago was that where it was raining?
I want to say 2015.
I know. I think it was just pre-COVID, if I remember correctly. I think if I remember correctly, you and I have been to so many Thanksgiving Day games, and I know because specifically where we were seated. So, but
let's
still,
let's not forget Tanner Marsh's coming out party all the way back to 2013. That too was a rain-soaked game as well, and he put on a masterclass in relief. He came into the game kind of like what Davis Alexander did a couple of weeks ago, and he lit it up, led the Alouettes to a comeback victory over the BC Lions. But yeah, that too was a rain-heavy game. A lot of rain, but no lightning.
No, but this game on Saturday, obviously, it did start off with the rain, and we thought it was going to. I think it's for something that us and I think some fans were actually prepared because I did not expect that to get that amount of rain as we did. As the Canadian national anthem was being sung, it just came down in torrents. But luckily, it stopped right before kickoff, or literally just after kickoff, and the Owls were able to do what they did, and obviously the Owls came away with that win, Cliff. Winning by 10. 33-23 over the Hamilton Tiger Cats, with them extending, their record moving to 8-1 at the halfway point of their season. As I said, just before, just over 22,000, and it was a game where Davis Alexander got the start again, became 2-0, and joined a very unique club of Owls quarterbacks that have started 2-0 after being given a shot. I think it's him, Caleb Evans, VA, and then it goes all the way back to, I have it here, all the way back to 1954 I'm reaching here. I know. 1954 was Vernon Cole. Sorry, 1964. He also started off at 2-0. So a very
Cody Fajardo was also 2-0 to start his Alouettes career as well.
That too. You are correct, sir. You are correct. So,
tell you, when you've got it, you've got it. And we've talked about this ad nauseum, and we'll keep talking about it again because I still think a lot of people still don't know quite what to make of Davis Alexander. From day one, we've seen this guy. We knew what he was able to do. We knew what he was capable of, and he's just simply gone out and done it each and every time. He has not been perfect by any stretch. Let's not twist this, but by and large, he has answered the call in both of his starts and also in relief against Saskatchewan. I mean, he has proven that he definitely belongs in this league. He definitely can lead a team to victory and has looked absolutely fantastic in doing so.
Yeah, I agree. And as I mentioned on Flightdeck Live, the post-game show, this was the Davis Alexander who really reminded us more of the guy coming in relief. He was so much better than he was his first start the week prior in Hamilton. He just seems to be more comfortable, and how he was able to use some of the guys to his advantage. Some of the guys that may not be really well known on the roster itself, Cliff, but it's good to see that that Davis has becoming comfortable with quite a few of these guys.
Yep, and that's the thing that, as an Alouettes fan or supporter, you love to see it. You love to see that this guy can step in behind center, and everybody comes to play for him. Everybody is in step with him. The chemistry he has with his receivers, absolutely outstanding. Being able to use Walter Fletcher, Joshua Antwi in the backfield as well, absolutely outstanding. Like Davis has control. He's got the leadership. Like there's no panic, there's no concern or anything like that. Like he just comes in cool, calm, collected. Doesn't let things get to him. In fact, at one point, I think it was just before the Charleston Rambo touchdown, Montreal had an incredible gain, and I think it was Richard Leonard for the Hamilton Tiger Cats was starting to beak off at Davis, and Davis is like, okay, yeah, just doing the the hand talking motion, like, okay, yeah, talk your trash, let's go, but scoreboard, simply put. I mean, that's just it. How Davis is. You're not going to rattle this kid. I mean, he just comes in with great confidence, steps in, does the job, and looks absolutely outstanding.
Yeah, that was the first Rambo touchdown, right?
I believe so. Yeah. No.
Was the first or second? I saw the video too, and I was like, was that right after the touchdown, or was it? Because I was trying to put the timeline to it too. I didn't go back and watch the highlights of the game in full, but
I think it might have been just out. I don't quite remember, but yeah, it was just hilarious to see. And like I said, you don't want none of that guy. You don't want none of Davis Alexander, because he's not going to be the type that's talk trash or anything like that. But he's just going to let the work speak for itself, and that's exactly what he did against Hamilton this past Saturday.
Yeah, and obviously, I think the best way to set up this game, because I know we talked about it a little bit on the post game show, which is still is available over on our YouTube page and over on X and over on Facebook. That the game started off with basically two turnovers on two drives. The first two drives for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. A football god saying "screw you" when it came to James Tuck, and actually getting the Owls being allowed to keep a fumble.
What a concept!
Yeah, and then a interception by Darnell Sankey that you and I saw coming a mile away, because as soon as he threw it, you could tell immediately where that ball was going.
I mean, I don't know. Again, I can't speak for what Bo Levi Mitchell sees on the field, every snap, but if you didn't know better, you swear he was throwing the ball directly to Sankey. If not to Sankey, then to pretty much everybody in the secondary. I mean, that ball was going to an Alouette no matter what. And it just so happened that Sankey was able to get that extra little pep in his step, that extra little jump, and he was able to snag that baby out of midair. Like, wow. And let me tell you, that was enough for Scott Milanovic, head coach of the Tiger Cats, after those two series, two turnovers. He's like, I've seen enough. Let's see what Taylor Powell can do, because Bo don't got it. He don't got it tonight. No,
and I think the only negative about those two drives, Cliff, is that they came away with only 3 points each time. Throw in a safety there on Taylor Powell's first drive also, where the ball goes over his head. Unlike what we have to talk about, because I know nobody has really been talking about it. The Joseph Zima stop and kick, if you want to call. I don't know what else to call it, but I mean, the ball.
What a recovery and what a boot
kidding,
too.
Eh?
I mean, that could have gone all kinds of sideways, but give credit to Zima. Like, he mitigated the damage, still had the wherewithal to kick the ball and get it the hell away from him and away from out of like their own territory. And it ended up being a pretty decent kick. I mean, all things considered, I don't think the returner was able to get very far with it. I mean, got to give props to Zima for that one. That was pretty outstanding. I mean, he's had some pretty nice kicks this year. A couple of nice coffin corner kicks. A couple, like sometimes when he gets that ball up in the air so high, I'm sitting there any higher, and you'd have a stewardess up there. That's how high these kicks go. It's absolutely incredible. Like, he has not missed a step at all. I mean, he just keeps on rolling.
Yeah, exactly. Let's give some of these guys some props, because tonight, guys, we have a little bit long form interview, a little bit longer than normal, but we got the great Rod Pedersen with us this week, talking about CFL, talking about the Riders, talking about the Alouettes matchup, and a little bit more. So stay tuned for that. Davis Alexander, 17-24, Cliff, 247 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks.
Just once, and he was sacked just once. I mean,
yeah.
So right away, you see the offensive line is giving him the protection and giving him the time and space to do what he needs to do, and also creating lanes for the running backs as well. So once again, you got to give full marks to the offensive line for doing their job. Like, you don't hear too much about it, but just being able to do those little things to let Davis and company do what they do, absolutely outstanding work.
Yeah, and it's something that I mentioned too. We've mentioned in the last couple of weeks. Mentioned on the post game show. I was quite impressed with where the rushing game was this past week, Cliff? Because besides Walter Fletcher leading the team with 53 yards, you had STE Sean Thomas Erlington had 42. You had Davis Alexander with 27. James Letcher. I know obviously he had to come in for reasons which we're going to talk about. But he had 21 yards also. Dominic Davis, the return of Dominic Davis, he had 8. So I really was happy that they were able to finally get this running game going, and hopefully it will be a sign of things to come for the next, obviously for the rest of the season, Cliff, because when you're able to throw in the run, it can surprise the other team sometime.
Absolutely. And we've been talking up Walter Fletcher all season long, and he's just answered the call every single time. I mean, he may not rack up like 100+ yards on the ground like other running backs in this league could and have done this year, but I mean, my God, like, just when it comes to like rushing or receiving, whatever you need Walter Fletcher to do, again, captain check down, whatever you need him to do, he's able to do it. He's able to move the ball, move the chains, and even score the occasional touchdown. I mean, what more could you ask from your top tier running back? I mean, he's definitely answered the call every single time. Definitely got to give a shout out also to Sean Thomas Erlington, playing his former team, the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Very exciting for him to come in. I don't want to say necessarily garbage time, but you saw him more a little bit towards the end of the game itself. Had a couple of nice runs, just basically salted the game away. Like, at this point, it's just get a first down, and just bleed the clock. And give credit to STE. He definitely came in. I'm sure he was motivated. I'm sure his family, who's probably used to coming to Personal Wilson Stadium wearing Tiger Cats jerseys, now they're all wearing Alouettes jerseys, which you'll love to see it. I mean, definitely very impressed with the couple of runs that Erlington had. Didn't hear too much from Joshua Nansby, but when you need him, he is there. I mean, I would have been happy to see another onside punt, but I guess the opportunity just didn't present itself. So, I mean, this ground game for the Alouettes is definitely getting better every single game. And it starts at the top with Walter Fletcher. He is just whatever you need him to be. He is that guy.
Yeah, 151 total yards. It's been a while since the Alouettes have broken that mark this season for that amount of rushing yards. Leading receiver for the team, Cliff, was Charleston Rambo. Sort of a coming out party for him. Happy birthday to him. What did he do on his birthday? Well, 8 targets, 6 receptions, Cliff, 124 yards, 2 touchdowns. Longest was a 51-yarder.
Ooh, just
Yeah.
a bomb, like an absolute dime from Davis Alexander. Holy jeez. I mean, like you talk about grip it and rip it. That's exactly what Davis did. And just hucked it down the field and right into the waiting arms of Charleston Rambo. I mean, he was not alone, but I mean, he had his man beat and just waltzed right into the end zone as a result. Absolutely phenomenal. And his second touchdown, I mean, he caught that in a phone booth, for crying out loud. I mean, that's just absolutely the shortest possible window that Davis could have had to throw a touchdown pass. And he finds Charleston like with the toe tap even. He had 1 foot down, just barely inbounds, but it counts. That's all you need. You just need that 1 foot inbounds to score a touchdown in the Canadian Football League, folks. And Charleston Rambo scored an absolute beauty of a second touchdown.
And Shedler Furvius, man, I feel so bad for this dude. I mean, 48 yards. That's he had 48 yards, but he had 1 catch for 48 yards. This close to getting his first ever CFL touchdown.
So close.
Yeah.
So close for Shed, man. And the perfect way to end the third quarter. Like if he could have just made it to the end zone, but again, he just a burst of speed. Like holy cow! Like I knew he was fast, but like he really turned the Jets on for that run. I mean, wow, like so close to scoring, and he had nothing but green real estate in front of him. You could just see just his vision. I'm sure his vision. He didn't even know that he had a couple Tiger Cat defenders trying to track him down, and when that one defender got him, like, oh darn it, like just feel for you, Shed. I really do. And I thought, okay, fourth quarter comes in. Okay, Alouettes are clearly in the red zone. You got to give it to Shed again. You got to let him redeem himself. You know, he needs that touchdown. He deserves it. But lo and behold, Davis decides instead to go for David Dallaire, trying to get him his second CFL touchdown. Came very close again. Just on the 1 yard line, he stopped short. And then Dominique Davis punches it in back like he never left. After, I believe he had 13 rushing touchdowns in 2022.
Yep, set the team record. Yep. For quarterbacks, rushing touchdowns by a quarterback.
Yeah, coming in for Caleb Evans, just back like he never left. I mean, like didn't miss a step as far as I was concerned. He did the short yardage extremely well, just as I expect Caleb Evans to do it. Dominique Davis was able to come in and just, like I said, just didn't miss a beat.
Yeah. Other guys who were able to chip in, Walter Fletcher, again, at 22 yards, David Dallaire, 14, Nate Bahar. I think we're going to be seeing this guy's name a little bit showing up in the stat sheet. 19 yards. Letcher had 6, and Antwi and Philpott had 7 yards each. Cole Speaker 0 for 2. One where he actually got rocked. Oy. I don't know what about this dude. He's taking all these Cahoon type hits, if I'm not mistaken. So,
yeah, it's funny. Like we were calling Tyler Snead Cahoon 3.0, but yeah, Cole Speaker, I guess, in the absence of Tyler Snead, has decided, okay, you need maybe that second and short guy to get the first down and take a licking in the process. I can do that.
Yeah. Now, obviously, we're talking about why so few yards for Tyson Philpott. Well, Cliff, he got hurt. I mean, it seemed to be really non-conspicuous non-contact play. If you go back and you watch the game itself, it's right before the end of the first quarter. To me, because so far there's been no official update of what his status is and how long he may be out, depending on who you talk with, whether it be Coach Moss, or you speaking to Danny Machocha. It's to me, I'm calling it very similar to what Cole Speaker had, but
you mean Tyler Snead?
Sorry, Tyler Snead had, but I guess we'll have to see until I guess the depth charts on Thursday.
Yeah, when you say non-contact injury, your first thought is, oh crap, did he blow out his knee or his Achilles or something like that? Like, I mean, he was able to walk off the field under his own power, at least, so it probably isn't that bad. But at the same time, we didn't think Tyler Snead was that bad either, because he too was able to get off the field.
Exactly.
And next thing you know, he's in a walking boot, just like Tyson Philpott was this past Saturday. And then Tyler Snead ends up on the 6-game list. hopefully that same fate will not befall Tyson Philpott. That would just be absolutely terrible, considering what a phenomenal season he's had thus far. Considering he started last season on the 6-game list, and it took a while for him to, once he got back into the lineup, things were fine. He was able to finally develop that connection with Cody Fajardo and become one of the top weapons in the offense. And there's no doubt in my mind, when Tyson comes back, whether it's just on the single game or, God forbid, he ends up on the 6th game, when he comes back, he'll be back better than ever. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But it's still one of those really unfortunate things you do not want to see in this league, and you don't want to see it on your team as well. I mean, it's just it's a bitter pill to swallow, but hopefully we'll get some answers by Friday as to what his status is, and hopefully it's just the 1-game list that he's on, and that he'll be back better than ever after this Friday against Saskatchewan.
Yeah, exactly. And as I said, we're able to, just based on the guys who are able to step up, it goes to that mentality again of all the guys, as coach has been saying, in the hangar. The guys are able to come out of the hangar. They're right, they're ready, and they're ready to go. By the way, one thing that it seemed that was kind of glossed over, I don't think it made any socials. I don't remember seeing it coming from French media or English media, Cliff, was that, and we only found out post game, was that Najee Murray got hurt during warmups.
Yeah. These warmups suck. You know what? How many guys have gone down to injury during the warmup? Can we just skip warmup? Is that what you have practice for?
Practice.
We joke about how having a good week of practice is the kiss of death. I'm starting to think having a good warm-up is a kiss of death, because what the hell's going on with these injuries during the warm-up? Can we just get rid of that altogether? I know the players need to stretch. I know they need to warm up. They need to, get moving and make sure they're not going into a game colder than the other side of the pillow. But holy jeez, this is getting to be an epidemic practically. Guys getting dinged up in the warm-ups. I mean, that, especially a guy like Najee Murray, who has been absolutely sensational this year, has really made his presence felt in the secondary. To not have him in the lineup it sucks. I mean, yes, it does give opportunity for others to come in and do their thing, but at the same time, we know what Najee's able to do, and for him to be down is not great, shall we say.
Yeah, David Vereen was able to step in, did nicely for him on Saturday. Another thing I wanted to comment about too, Cliff, because I know we want to talk to Rod here in a couple of minutes, is that what is with opposing kickers at Percival Molson for the third time in, was it 2 games? The third time in 2 games that we've had bar balls off the uprights.
The doinks, yeah.
The doinks. Yeah, it's the third time in 2 games, right?
No.
Third time in 3 games. It's third time in 3 games.
Yes.
Home games. 3 times in the last 2 home games.
Yeah, Mark Leggio, or when he misses, I like to jokingly call it "got no Leggio." But he had Leggio that time. But unfortunately, the ball just right into the upright, and that's a dead ball all day long. But yeah, it's incredible. I'm going to say maybe it's because Montreal, the Percival Molson Stadium, has now suddenly become a very intimidating place to play. I mean, the noise level, we've talked about how it's been increasing with every passing game. It's gotten louder and louder, and it's just the vibe from the stadium this is not a friendly place if you're on the opposing side. It's simply a matter of the team cultivating that, the fans getting behind it. They understand the assignment now. You make noise on defense. You make noise when the opposing kicker lines up to take a shot. I mean, these are the things you got to do. And I'm not saying it's going to psych them out, the opponents out necessarily, but at the same time, little things like that, it's a boost of confidence. And as soon as you see someone like Leggio just, posturize the post, I mean, it's, all you can do is sit back and laugh and wow, we did that. Everybody in the stands, we did that. That's, yeah, you love to see it. There's simply no other way to describe it other than you love to see it.
And the crowd was there. Obviously, they were loud again. Still got the comments on social about the damn horns. It's not the same way in the stadiums, folk.
F them.
I'd say talk to if you want any real truth from a non-fan. We had one of the Grey Cup Fun Police in the stands this past weekend.
Yeah.
he didn't hear him, no complaints. And,
No.
and he's a Riders fan. So,
and he knows noise. He knows what the importance of making noise on defense and trying to rattle the opponents. And I think there was, if I'm not mistaken, there was at least 2 or 3 time count violations as a result.
At the very beginning of the game, their first play before one snap by the Tiger Cats, there was a play for offsides.
I mean, again, that's all of you, Alouettes Nation. That when you make noise like that, that's where you help your team. That's where you help create the atmosphere at Personal Molson Stadium of making this a dangerous place to play. And I think, again, we talked about Corey Mace talking about that a couple weeks ago, how he noticed the noise, especially, it's a Thursday night game and maybe they don't have completely sold out, but they were loud. And guess what? It was damn near sold out this past Saturday and everybody was loud. And I guarantee we didn't hear about it from, anybody from the Tiger Cast, but I'm pretty sure they heard the noise too, and they had to have been like, "Wow, this is serious here."
Yeah, and everything was there. Everything was there for once, unprompted. The lightning bugs came out unprompted. So it's that we had the Grey Cup in the house for the second time this year because it was Tackle Hunger night for the Tackle Hunger game for the Alouettes, and yeah,
I also gotta give props. I'm not a fan of the wave because everybody seems to do it while the team's on offense. This time around, done on defense. I can live with that. I'm still not a fan. I'm still not gonna do the up down stuff.
Yeah,
that's not me. I'm not that fan anymore. But at least do it on. If you're gonna do it, at least do it on defense, and that's exactly what the crowd did. And I'll give props once again to that.
Yeah,
if there's one negative I have to say about the in-game experience so far, and it's happened the past two games, Tim, no country roads.
I know. I was gonna say. I was gonna say though the how loud the speakers were on our side underneath the stands. They were just a touch too loud, and I made sure I reached out and let them know on the post-game survey. So it's sometimes enough's enough, but
and I know that the public address announcer and the DJ situation seems to be a little in a bit of an upheaval right now, but play country roads, for God's sakes. Play country roads, especially when the team's winning consistently. This is how you send people home on a good note.
Exactly. Any last words, Cliff? Obviously, we got to give props to the defense too. I know you wanted to speak a little bit on the defense before we went and spoke with Rod.
Yeah, I got to give props overall to the defense. Once again, they did the thing where they slammed the door on the opponent over and over again. The fact that they chased Bo Levi Mitchell, first ballot Hall of Famer, out the door, essentially. I mean, put him on the sidelines for the rest of the game is nothing short of impressive. The one critique I do have to say, though, I really feel in that fourth quarter, yes, Montreal was up considerably, but they kind of took their foot off the pedal a little bit. Like they kind of went into prevent just a little too soon and gave Hamilton hope. Like they were able to score a couple of touchdowns, and end up being garbage.
Taylor Powell looked good.
Yeah, to the point where even Pro Football Focus made him the quarterback of the week, which is crazy to think that the guy who lost to the Alouettes is the quarterback of the week. Wait, what? This doesn't compute. He was on the losing team, but yeah, he definitely put up some pretty incredible stats. Definitely led some nice drives. But I mean, Montreal's defense. I mean, we know that what they're capable of doing. We know that Noel Thorpe gets these guys ready, and they can play lights out football when they absolutely have to. But I just don't want them getting into that habit of building an insurmountable lead, or it feels like an insurmountable lead, and then just taking the rest of the night off, or just kind of going at half speed. Because, I mean, yeah, Hamilton was able to score a couple touchdowns, but thankfully at that point the damage was already done. But I just don't like seeing that from the defense, and I know these guys don't like the fact that these garbage time touchdowns also affects their stats as well.
Yeah,
I know that's got to be bothering them, and I sincerely hope that this is something we don't see too often going forward. I mean, it's easy to kind of get into a lull, especially when you're up. I think at one point they were up. Was it 26-9?
Yeah.
I mean, like just a crazy amount, like a comfortable lead. But let's face it, Tim, in CFL there really isn't truly a comfortable lead. I mean, this is not a terrible Hamilton football team. I mean, you are what your record says you are, but I mean, like this was a team that has made comebacks happen in the past, and it would be so easy for Montreal to get complacent. And I want to believe that Noel Thorpe would never let that happen. I think he'd just ream everybody out in the process before letting that truly come to pass. But if there's a critique, and it's just simple constructive criticism, is just don't take your foot off the pedal. Don't stop doing the things that make you the reigning, defending, undisputed Grey Cup champions. Simply put, I mean, this Alouettes team is clicking on all cylinders. I mean, 8-1. This team is definitely on fire. This team has definitely proven that they are who they say they are. But when it comes to little things like that, those are the things that as I said, constructive criticism.
Yeah, for sure.
It's stuff that I would like to see better of, and I know what this team is capable of doing. So it's just a matter of, what you have to do. Don't drop the potato. And if you know, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you. Again, as I said, the Alouettes with the win moved to 8-1. It's they're 8-1 for the first time since 2004. I'm making a correction actually from what I said on Flightdeck Live. So it is 2004. Mm-hmm. But as I said in their tweet also, is that they're on that road. They're within striking distance of their all-time best start, but we'll see what happens. Obviously, coming up this week versus the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Speaking of Saskatchewan Roughriders, we had a guy who knows them quite well. He used to be the voice of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, but he's on to quite a few other things. Hopefully, you guys know him. If not, I hope you enjoy our conversation with him. So, without further ado, let's speak with Rod Pedersen.
Ladies and gentlemen, this coming Friday, the Montreal Alouettes will be visiting the Saskatchewan Roughriders for the rematch, if you will, from earlier this season. And to talk about Riders and everything else going on in the great province of Saskatchewan, we are thrilled to be joined once again by friend of the show, host of the Rod Pedersen Show, as well as the Cats and Bolts podcast. It is our pleasure to re-welcome back to the Alouettes Flight Deck, Rod Pedersen. Rod, welcome back to the Flight Deck, my man.
Hey, good to see you, boys. Mes amis, Tim, A. Cliffy, good to see you.
Appreciate that. Wow. It's like I said, it's been a while. A lot's gone on since the last time you've been on the show, Rod. I have to laugh. The Cats and Bolts podcast, which for those of you that don't know, Rod and Serena, am I pronouncing it right?
Yep.
Talk about everything to do with the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Florida Panthers. But Serena's also a Edmonton Oilers fan, born and raised, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So how awkward was it during the Stanley Cup final this year?
Unbelievably awkward. And you guys have been in broadcasting long enough to know you'd kind of like to be liked by your viewers. Panthers fans don't care for her too much, but that's okay. That's become a little bit of a storyline in the show. It was very awkward on our show. It was very awkward in our house in Florida, but we got through. I think we got through it. So, yeah, and actually, add to that list of things, I've joined the South Florida Tribune. We'll be covering the Panthers and Lightning for the South Florida Tribune this upcoming season. So, heading back September 1st. And yeah, lots of exciting things going on in Florida. But I'll tell you what, guys, there is a lot, and I mean a lot, of CFL fans in South Florida. And people snicker when I say that, and I don't know why they snicker when I say that. It's a legit league, as you guys know. We love it, and they love football. Florida football is number one. So I'm routinely being asked about the CFL. I'm kind of like the CFL ambassador in Florida, or I try to be anyways. A lot of Alouettes fans.
Oh. See, this is perfect. I mean, we talk about Rider fans are everywhere, but why can't CFL fans be everywhere too?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and the Alouettes have their one of their free agent camps in Fort Lauderdale, and my friend who coaches high school football there is very close with Danny Machocha. His name's Matt Dubuck. He's from Verdun, played in the CFL. I don't know if you guys remember him from the 90s, but he's the most famous Florida high school coach. Currently, he's won 3 state championships at Cardinal Gibbons, and it's his field where the Alouettes hold their free agent camp. Rough Riders do too, actually. And I guess, I'm not sure if you saw, Deron Carter is coaching at that high school this year. It's his
Yes,
second.
yes.
It's his second high school coaching stint. And Matt actually called me for a reference on Duran, and I love Duran. And he spent enough time in Montreal. If anybody got to know him like you guys, anybody who knows him loves him. If you don't know him, you probably don't until you get to know him. And yeah, I love him. So you might see Duran back in the CFL one day coaching. I hope so.
I'd be thrilled. I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. Got nothing but love for Duran, and I know he enjoyed his time here in Montreal and enjoyed his time in the CFL in general as well. And yeah, I'd be thrilled to see him again. In a, I guess in this time around to be a coaching capacity. So that'd be pretty awesome.
Yeah, well, no, I should just say I don't want to derail the chat here. I know we're going to preview this Friday's game, but when we signed Duran, must have been 2018. I'd have to go
Mhm.
back and look right around there. Kevin Glenn was our quarterback with the Rough Riders, and I said to Kevin, "Oh my God, why we got to sign this guy?" And KG was like, "No, no, no, you'll love him. He's the most misunderstood player in the history of pro football." And I did love him. He was great for the Rough Riders. You still see him on those highlight, but that behind the backhanded catch that he made at Mosaic
Mhm.
Stadium
Mhm.
against Toronto. So, anyways, not to derail all of this, but he could be in the CFL or he could be in the NFL too. We all Duran's capable of doing whatever he wants. So I'm just excited to get back and follow that team.
Isn't that the Duran catch second after the SJ Green catch on Canada Day?
Usually, and what's cool is I called them both.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
That is very true. Well, Rod, we wanted you to come on to talk about all things Riders right now for all of our listeners and viewers. I mean, arguably the second best team in the league besides the reigning, defending, undisputed Grey Cup champion Montreal Alouettes. But I mean, as far as this team goes, I mean, it's night and day as far as I'm concerned from the Craig Dickinson era with Corey Mace at the helm now. What's the biggest difference you've seen so far in this Riders team in 2024?
Well, from what I hear, and this goes back to training camp, is love for the coach. I mean, I love Craig Dickinson. I'm not sure if you guys know him. He spent some time in Montreal earlier on in his career. But for whatever reason, maybe Corey's just that much younger, just viewed as a player's coach. It was in training camp where I heard the guys really, really love this guy. And if you watch the games, which you guys do, I think it's pretty evident out there. And it pains me to say that. I was gone by the time Craig Dickinson took over. I have a tough time believing anybody wouldn't like Craig Dickinson. I mean, he's one of the best guys I know in the game. But for whatever reason, he lost the room. And even Craig would tell you he lost the room. And right now, Corey Mace has that team in the palm of his hands. And in advance of this interview, I looked at some of the numbers. And guys, I don't know if you've heard this phrase. I'm sure you have. Teams take on the personality of their coach. I'm sure you've heard that. Number one team in sacks. I think they got 22 already this year. Corey Mace being a D lineman in the CFL and NFL. Number one run defense and number one in defensive takeaways. It's all about defense, and that's how they're winning their games without Trevor Harris, except for that night in Montreal, which, by the way, was the night that I'd like to say a star was born in Davis Alexander. Everybody's like, pump the brakes, but he looked pretty darn good, and he has looked very darn good in every game since. But to answer your question, it's just maybe a little more of a player's coach, and this team has taken on the personality of their coach, and that's how they've survived to stay in first place without Trevor Harris.
You're talking about speaking of survival. I was just going to talk about Trevor Harris. I mean, since leaving Montreal, the guy really hasn't played that much under center because he just seems to be, injury prone. Why do you think the Riders have decided to keep him? I mean, he is a higher paid player, obviously being a starting quarterback. But what do you think has allowed the Riders to go ahead and keep him, even though he has been so accident prone?
I think because he's very, very good. And, again, going back to the game notes, he's missed 19 of the 27 games since he's been there. But in I'm bad at math, 8 that he's played, he's been very good. Like, let's look at their record in that time. He's like 7-1. So I think they're just gambling that he will get healthy. And again, here's another former Alouette. I think if you know Trevor Harris, you love him. I'm pulling for the guy. And I think they kept him. Well, if they kept good guys, they would have kept Cody Fajardo. But I think it's just when he's healthy, he's that good. I read he's just today getting ready for this interview. Who's 17th all time in passing in the CFL? Trevor Harris. That surprised me a little bit because there's been some unbelievable quarterbacks come through this league. But Trevor Harris, when healthy, I don't know if you remember the famous Rough Riders broadcaster, John Lynch. Tim, he just passed away this December, called Rider Games in the 70s and 80s, used to use these acronyms. He would say Trevor Harris was GWH, great when healthy. And that's your answer, Tim. And since he's, when he's on the injured list, his salary doesn't go to the cap. So it's not really costing them anything to keep him. Now, I was surprised when they signed him too. I was surprised when they didn't bring back Cody Fajardo. And so that's why, listen, I've spent the summer in Saskatchewan calling baseball, as you alluded to. So I've heard it all. I've heard what everybody's saying. And they're already predicting a Saskatchewan-Montreal Grey Cup. I don't go along with that. That's if Trevor Harris comes back. And it's a big if. Although it sounds like he's starting this week. So
that's what it sounds like too. But obviously, it's funny. I know we're not talking about other CFL stuff, but you're right saying if, and considering what has transpired just in the last couple of days, especially in BC and stuff like that, and who's going to be starting in Ottawa and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, it's even though we're 9, basically halfway through the season, as we know within the CFL, anything can happen on any day.
Oh, God bless the CFL. Yes, it does. And to be honest, I'm not a stats nerd. Like I don't love analytics at all. But they pointed out that 3 wins separate first and fifth in the West. So that's why I'm kind of getting a bang out of any team's fan base in the CFL making Grey Cup predictions already when we're just at the halfway point, because usually it goes down to the last third, maybe of the season, maybe even the last 3 games, or there's this dramatic shift. Like last year, it was Calgary overtaking Saskatchewan down the stretch, where the Riders lost, what was it, their final 7 games? Yeah. So if Trevor Harris doesn't come back, defenses are going to tighten up. Shea Patterson hasn't looked all that the last couple of games. Here's a news flash, guys. Coaches in the CFL are sharp. So it's taken them a while to figure out Shea Patterson, but the Riders have kept that ship afloat without Trevor Harris. But like you say, anything can happen, and we love the CFL for that. We've seen it for years.
Yeah, even Shea got a cup of coffee in Montreal too. I'm sure Alouette fans remember him also. So it's just like VA. Also, I mean, all these former Alouette quarterbacks. But what's your overall assessment of the Riders for the first half of the season, Rod? Because it's, as you said, they've gone through their ups and downs. I mean, many other teams have done that too, even the Alouettes too. I mean, considering they have 12 guys on the 6th game, but they've been next man up mentality type of thing. But what's your thought on the Riders through the first half?
2 things pop into my head. Number one, the defense that I talked about earlier. They lead in some very key stats. So the defense has been winning them games. And then the unheralded guy that nobody talks about is the offensive coordinator, Mark Mueller. In wins, on-field interviews right after the game, both Trevor Harris and Shea Patterson have singled out the offensive coordinator, Mark Mueller, for the adjustments he made in-game, the plays that he's called that's allowed them to put points on the board. Mark Mueller. So Corey May, you don't even hear Mark Mueller's name. And if you know Mark at all, he's Ron Lancaster's grandson, and you guys on this call know that. He's okay with not getting the pub. He just wants to win. So, and then the other thing, Mario Alford's been great. I was knocked off my chair when I heard he is number 1 all-time in kick return touchdowns for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I was like, what? Because we've had some great ones too. So our old buddy, Gary Echeverry, was the first guy I ever heard use this term, complementary football. They've been playing complementary football by scoring on defense and special teams to compensate for an offense missing Trevor Harris. So there's 3: great defense, Mark Mueller, and just complementary football, scoring on 2 other phases of the game is how I would answer that.
That's why they're leading the league in plus minus. That's the thing. You're right. You can't.
Now, one thing I do want to bring up, and I was a little surprised to see this on the Rod Pedersen show. You asked if Corey Mace was on the hot seat based on the, I guess, 2-game losing streak or 3-game winless streak, however you want to paint it. Was that just strictly just to get people riled up, or because as far as I'm concerned, I don't see how that could even be part of the discussion. I mean, first year head coach and the way he's already implemented his culture already in Saskatchewan, I don't think he's in the hot seat by any stretch. But I'd love to hear what prompted you to pose that question.
Well, you've been to Saskatchewan, Cliffy. Have you, Tim?
No, I haven't.
Compare it in terms of a glare from a fan base on the Montreal Canadiens. Okay? That's what it's like. It's suffocating from the fans. So with regards to that question, Cliffy, we have a morning meeting with our staff every day. And that particular morning that was our poll question, we had a CFL reporter, I'm not going to say who, was in our call. So we said, hey, so-and-so, you're a newcomer in our meeting today. Why don't you come up with today's poll question? It was his. He was like, dare we ask, is Corey Mace on the hot seat if the Riders lose this game? And we're like, whoa, okay, let's do it. And it wasn't even my question. I didn't think people would go as crazy as they did. But just to walk it back a little more, that was the day of the Ottawa game last week. They were coming off the loss to Edmonton. At home. The Riders lost to Edmonton at home 42-31. Okay? That's unthinkable. So I was listening to the call-in show. Again, back to the glare of the fan base. People were calling in to the post-game show going, is Corey Mace doing too many community appearances? Is it taking away from his focus of being the head coach of this team? Like, they're all over his ass 2 weeks ago. So the fans are on your butt no matter what. Now, they're not on Martin St. Louis right now with the Habs, but you know what I'm saying? They better do something this year, or they will be. So
they will be.
Corey Mace is in year one of a multi-year deal. I know his job wasn't in jeopardy, but the fans are on his ass. And now I'd have to go back. They're at least winless in 2, maybe more than that. I think they got 1 win their last 5 games. That don't fly in Sask, boys. So that's where it came from.
Okay. Again, I was just more amused to even see something like that, just being even discussed. I mean, it just seems like, wait, what? Did you want to go back to the Craig Dickinson era, which everybody seemed to have hated towards the end? Like, just I don't know, just seemed crazy to me.
We're in the entertainment business, Cliffy. Let's not forget.
That is very fair. All right. Regarding the returnees, if you will, this is supposed to be a lot of people were looking at this game as the return of the Jilted Lovers Bowl, considering you would have had Cody Fajardo versus Trevor Harris. Trevor Harris is looking to start. Cody Fajardo still has not been given 100% the green light to even participate in practice, let alone start. So I don't see him coming back. But Jason Moss is going to be coming back to Saskatchewan for the first time since being unceremoniously let go. What do you make of the narrative of all these former players and coaches and everybody that's involved with the Riders and Alouettes finally meeting again for the first time?
Well, if Cody was playing, it would be nothing short of a 3-ring circus. And I've seen the Facebook groups and stuff, people saying at the start of this week when they thought maybe Cody might play, I saw somebody write, is Cody Fajardo going to finally play at Sask, or is he going to chicken out again and all that? And I'm like, listen, fans have very short memories. Rider fans have very short memories. Rightly or wrongly, that's just what it is. So they've all, somehow or another, Cody Fajardo turned into a villain. And then he leads the Alouettes to the Grey Cup and is the MVP. And the Riders fans sucked on that for a couple months and then got right back to he's the villain and we don't want him and blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like, so what more do you need to realize you screwed up in letting Cody Fajardo walk and firing Jason Moss? But they don't. It's the way fans are. So Moss coming in, he was not a real in front of the cameras public. You know, Jason, he doesn't like the spotlight. So he's going to come in and try and win a game. Now, underneath, there probably is no bigger competitor than Jason Moss. Let's be honest. But he wouldn't be comfortable with this game being about him. He wouldn't want it being about him. And nor really would Cody. It's unfortunate. But, I mean, Saturday, I was watching the Hamilton-Montreal game. Was it Saturday? Yeah. You guys had a great crowd there in Montreal. And I'm going, no Fajardo. Bo's pulled. This game's boring. To me, it was. Sorry, you guys were winning, so you probably didn't see it that way. But every league is predicated on star power, even in the National Football League, because I live 40 miles north of Miami, all anybody talks about is Tua, Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers. It's all about the quarterbacks. And when the star quarterbacks aren't playing, it sucks. And that's been a problem. Obviously, it's not the CFL's fault, but it's just been a bad thing for the league this year. I haven't seen TV ratings, and obviously attendance in your market seems to be great. But it's just another missed opportunity. But by the time Cody is healthy enough to play, if it's next year coming into Sask, I don't even know it'll be a story anymore. So this game Friday is about the win, I think, more than anything.
Yeah, and I think as far as marketability goes, if the CFL is trying to paint that sort of rivalry, try to sort of paint that sort of, try to hype the game up, I don't think the game needs that much hype. I mean, you've got the defending Grey Cup champions versus, I'll say, arguably the hottest team of the Western Division meeting up. I mean, that should sell itself, I would think.
We're going to find out. They haven't had a sellout yet this year. And, there's still people that are upset over the way Cody departed, upset at the Riders. There are some a segment of the fan base that feel that way. But I guess we'll find out, Cliffy, by, the crowd. But I don't think the Riders are the hottest team right now. I mentioned the slide. They tied in Ottawa, lost Edmonton prior to this. Nathan Rourke coming back is the greatest thing to happen to the CFL since Nathan Rourke 1.0 a couple of years ago, right? That is a major shot in the arm. I guess it'll make us forget about the command center foibles and every other thing that we poke at in the CFL that I guess we're just supposed to pretend doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain or in the command center.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, the league can always promote it. It's like, a Montreal Alouettes, Saskatchewan Roughriders, and the new command center.
Yeah.
I at least I have to ask you. I know we're switching gears here just a touch, and since you brought up Nathan Rourke, what's your thought on what has happened there in BC just recently? Because obviously Rourke comes in, he's getting big money, to be signed. And I think they're using some of the non-cap money that's available to teams. Also, you have VA who's hurt, VA who has been not treated well as a starter before in the past, and you have Dalagala who was their starter last week, and he's now not even on the team anymore. What's your thought on that there in BC?
Doesn't surprise me at all because we had an assistant GM with the Rough Riders in the early 2000s. You guys may or may not remember the name, Bobby Vespasiani. He was a CFL icon back in the day, former head coach of the Calgary Stampeders, and he was one of Roy Shiver's best friends. And I never forgot this. He said, he had this Italian accent, Massachusetts accent. He goes, better is better. They're always going to try and find somebody better. And for instance, I'll relate it to hockey. Sorry. But in Florida with the Panthers, they were rocking last year, and they go out and get Vladimir Tarasenko at the trade deadline and Kyle Okposo and a certain amount of players. Better is better. And there were veteran guys that were forced to not play, be healthy scratches in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Better's better. They thought there was a chance to better their team in Florida, and the BC Lions think the same thing. Not to mention he's going to fill the stadium. VA has been around the league not long enough to know how it works. So at all 24 positions on the field, they're going to find, if they can find somebody better than you, they're going to sign him. I'm sure VA is not surprised by this. Not happy, but I don't think any of us are surprised, are we?
Not even a little.
No, not either. But it's still the money too. I mean, considering VA's contract and also Nathan's contract now too, and I'm here talking. It's like, how far much over is BC going to go over the cap this year, and how much are they going to get fined? So,
well, the cap's basically a luxury tax at this point. So, I mean, I'd say go for it. Blow your brains out.
Why don't you go talk to who's the president of Quebecor? The new owner of the Owls?
Pierre Carpello.
Yeah, if you can get a message to him, ask him how he feels about this. I'm sure he's okay because you guys are the reigning Grey Cup champions and you're filling the stadium in your first place. He's probably okay with it. But what's better for the CFL? What's best for the CFL is having Nathan Rourke in it. So you find a way. I had this discussion probably about a year ago, again, back to NHL terms, but it doesn't operate a whole lot differently. I was concerned about cap space with the team, and I had one general manager tell me, don't worry about that. The teams will always find a way to make it happen if they want a player bad enough. In the NHL, I don't think they play fast and loose with the salary cap like the CFL does. Like literally, all of a sudden, marketing money is a term. As of 24 hours ago, we heard about marketing money. What?
Yeah.
Like just say we're not abiding by the salary cap. They're never going to be transparent about it. God, I'd never heard of the marketing. I've been covering the league since 1991. I have never heard of the phrase marketing money when it comes to signing a player. Have you guys?
Yesterday, I learned the term marketing money. Like you hear about deals in drawers, you hear about envelopes of money, you hear about all sorts of cloak and dagger ways to pay players, but marketing money is definitely a new one.
Yeah. I mean, and not only that, like I thought if this were to go to a bidding war, which I thought it might have, as it turns out, Nathan obviously has a home in a figurative home in BC. They love him there, and it sounds like he loves it there. But for them to pay him $809 in the second year of this deal, wow, good for him. But again, back to covering the league since 91, I got a lot of old time buddies who were presidents and owners back in the 90s. And they were saying that now the CFL should go back to the marquee player rule. You guys must remember that. Every player could have $1 million quarterback. And I don't necessarily think it's a bad deal, but to sit here and do mental gymnastics or accounting on how the BC Lions are going to fit under the cap. Remember a couple of years ago when Toronto was the only team over the cap and Ambrosi just said, but we're not finding him. What? Why even have rules then? Yeah. So I just, CFL, what'd you say? You expect the unexpected, or what'd you say? Something like that?
Keep it unreal. Keep it unreal, I think.
Keep it unreal.
I guess it's better than last year's slogan, let them know, when we couldn't get any stats all year. Let them know what.
Yeah.
So keep it unreal works, Cliffy. There you go, man. Good work.
I'm about to say, if I think about it too, is that if the Alouettes do happen to get Austin Mack back, considering what it was rumored that his contract was going to be this year, the Owls may have some interesting math coming up too, because I think it was reported, $250,000 a year. So we'll
marketing
see.
money.
Yeah, marketing. And honestly, guys, I think the marketing money was a new thing for the CBA. If I remember correctly, that's why we only are technically hearing about it now. I think it hasn't been as promoted as much because teams had no reason to do it. With Rourke coming back, BC needed the money. Amar Dolan is like, well, I need to find some other money without going over the cap. There we go.
Yeah, but I feel like every time there's a new CBA, for those of us that cover the league closely, and I think I put you guys in that, we always hear, here's what's new in this CBA versus the old one. And I don't remember hearing anything about marketing money. And again, I don't have a problem with this because Nathan Rourke in the CFL is a good thing. But I would have liked to have seen what he could have fetched if they'd opened it up to whomever. Like Hamilton, for instance, I heard probably was in the running. He's from there, right? Oakville. And they need a quarterback. So you said it best, Cliffy. Amar Doman reaching, pulling out some cash. Here you go. Let's find a way later to explain what it is. Whatever. I don't get too bent out of shape on this. I know a lot of people do, but it's called making up the rules as you go along.
And also, too, BC's in a Grey Cup year. They're going to be hosting the Grey Cup, so why wouldn't you pull out all the stops to do whatever it takes in hopes of being able to play in that game? So, yeah. You can't fault.
Exactly. Oh, they're going to make the money up. They are going to make the money up, probably this season. But, that's, again, I just read it. I was looking for an update on Trevor Harris before we went to air here tonight. And I saw somebody tweet that if you're looking for a Trevor Harris versus Cody Fajardo meeting, you're going to have to wait until Grey Cup Sunday because Fajardo's not playing this week. I'm like, oh, my God, here we go. That's coming out of Sask. So they full on believe that's the matchup. And I can tell you the BC Lions have other ideas. And I think any sane fan would too, based on what Nathan has done. So, oh, my God, you imagine what he's going to do with that group of receivers? They had 3 1,000-yard receivers last year without Nathan Rourke.
Yep. Yeah. And they got William Stanback for him to hand the ball off to as well. We know what he's capable of doing. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. They're going to be front runners here shortly.
Yeah, I think if you had said that Riders Riders Alouettes Grey Cup prediction a couple days ago, it wouldn't seem so crazy. But in the span of 24 hours, all of a sudden, like, oh, I don't. That's gonna be tough to sell to me.
Yeah, well, and the other thing, by the way, full disclosure, I think I grew up as a hockey guy. I never played football. I was never very comfortable as the voice of the Riders for 20 years, just because I never played the game, and I was so comfortable in hockey. So I always deferred to the coaches when they said, "Oh, we can't just sign a player and play him this week. It's far too complicated at any position, let alone quarterback." That's what the coaches used to always say. And it happens very rarely, by the way. The only time I can remember a quarterback being acquired via trade or signed, the only time he played that week was out of necessity. Winnipeg did it with Matt Nichols, going into Labor Day Classic 7, 8, 9 years ago. I was calling it. Rourke's going to play this Sunday. Now, he's got all week to get ready, but most coaches treat this like brain surgery. Oh, my God, we couldn't have a quarterback play this week. He's got too much to learn. That's all hogwash, especially for a smart quarterback.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because Kevin Glenn, when he was acquired by Montreal, was going to be starting a few days later. And like, how can you learn the playbook? And he said, I can learn the playbook in 2 days.
Against the same opponent.
Yeah.
Did he play?
Yes.
He did.
Yeah.
And did he win?
I don't think he did. I don't think he did.
He didn't win that one, but
yeah, Matt Nichols didn't win. So maybe there was something to that. But I know Baker Mayfield was signed 2 days before a game with the LA Rams 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And won. So it can be done.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it can't. I was always led to believe that there's no way. No, hogwash.
By the way, according to the injury reports today, guys, Trevor Harris is available. Cody was a full participant today at practice, and he too is technically available.
The plot thickens.
That's a good thing. I guess they want to sell tickets or whatever, but it'd be a major downer if it was built up as Fajardo's return and he didn't play.
I don't see Fajardo playing. I think it will be Davis Alexander.
Which, by the way, can I ask you guys something? As the learned football gentleman you are, Davis Alexander looks like all that to me. He really does.
We have been singing his praises from day one. The minute we saw him in Camp Rod, we thought, holy cow, the zip on his ball was nothing short of phenomenal. The way he saw the field was impeccable practically. Like, this is a raw rookie. Like, this is his first time in Canada, and he's simply dominating in training camp. And yes, I know everybody looks good in training camp. Everybody looks good in the preseason, yada, yada. But I mean, I saw that there was really something special about this kid. And I said, give it time, give him a chance to get some seasoning. Let AC work with him as his quarterback coach. You're going to see something special. So when he stepped in against Saskatchewan a couple of weeks ago, Tim and I, we knew what was going to happen, but everybody else was just taken aback by who the heck is this guy?
Yeah, and he predates Ma's Fajardo regime, right? Like,
yes.
But Machocha brought him in. Was that when Kahari was the head coach?
He predates him by a year.
Yeah.
Gotcha. But Machocha was there. He's the Machocha find. Is that
yes.
Am I right? I just want to get it clarified here today. Thank you.
100%. He is and Danny is very proud of the fact that he found him.
He should be. He should. Danny
Absolutely.
has gone through a lot of crap, and I made a public apology last year. Look, I'm a huge Kahari fan, personally and professionally. So when Kahari was let go, I had let Machocha have it, but on my show. But when Al's won the Grey Cup last year, I came out and made a full apology, and you'd think I'd be used to it, but I stick up for my friends. But obviously, Kahari was just not a Machocha guy. It happens, right? It happens. Machocha and Maz goes back to Edmonton together where they won together, and clearly Danny made the right move. I don't even know what Kahari's doing now. It's unfortunate that a guy like that isn't in the league, but it's hard. You can't fault Machocha for the moves that he's made. None that I can see.
No, I think at the time, a lot of the moves that were made to sort of transition to this period now, even we were kind of scratching our heads a little bit like, are you sure about that? I just the way the team was already structured, and that feel-good story from 2019 of how they were back to being relevant again in the Canadian Football League. And are you sure you really want to tinker with that? But clearly he had a plan, and Machocha worked it to perfection, obviously.
And it's still working to perfection. It looks
Indeed.
like. Yeah.
I mean, you don't go 8-1 by accident. So
Exactly.
I would definitely concur that, I think it's working.
Hey Rod, before we let you go, we have to give you your show some love. Obviously, you've been going for quite a while. Obviously, doing the transitioning thing from radio now to I'll call it television. To me, that's what it is. It's TV. Tell everybody how's it been going with the show. And obviously, you recently have moved from Canada to you're now doing it basically from the U.S. But let everybody know how the Rod Pedersen show is going.
Thank you, Tim. It's fun. I mean, we've done over 1,300 shows, and we do have a lot of Quebec listeners or viewers. I mean, it's on Game Plus television. It's not just podcast form. Everybody thinks that it is, but it's on Videotron. If you have that, Rogers. Also, we do have a lot of television viewers. Every morning when I get out of bed, I'm excited to do the show. That's all I can tell you. I'm still loving doing it, and it's a big change going from local radio, being the voice of a CFL team, to a show that airs across North America, all across Canada and 31 U.S. states. You know what, Tim? Thank you for the question. It took me a long time to realize it doesn't matter what people want, because everybody wants something different. So I've settled in on what I want. So we talk a lot of CFL, we talk a lot of NHL, and more NFL, which isn't a topic we're going to get into here, but I think the NFL is becoming Canada's most popular football league. We'd be idiots not to talk about it, the NFL. But I have fun doing it every day, and we've gone from broadcast. Well, we still do Grey Cups, but now I've been in the last few Super Bowls, Stanley Cup Finals, NHL All-Star Game. It's fun, and the cool thing was, since we own it, nobody could tell us what to do. We were the first to do what we've done, and it was pre-COVID. Like one of you mentioned that. So guys joining us from their hotel room or their car, we were doing that before everybody was doing that. So that we were lucky to have perfected that. And it's been fun. The CFL is our bread and butter, no doubt. And whenever I say anything, like you mentioned, Cliffy, you couldn't figure out why I asked that question. Now you know it wasn't really me, but I just enjoy lighting the bomb, setting off the bomb, and seeing everybody scurry. It's fun. I don't have to answer to anybody. That's the biggest thing. One CFL panelist, I'm not going to tell you who, but one of the main guys, you flip on the TV and you see him every week, said to me at Grey Cup, he goes, you made it out of the prison and you're running. And everybody's still in the prison, in the media business, looking at it going, look at Rod go. Lucky Rod. In that, we're not worried about being fired. We don't have to worry about what to say. That's what it was when I got into this business. And now you saw the Hamilton Tiger Cats radio went belly up today. They closed their doors. Like it's just the freedom of being able to do whatever you want to do. And to be honest, if one day we closed our doors, which I don't expect that to happen, I got a whole other career, as Cliffy knows, as a mental health and addiction recovery coach. And that is keeping me very busy. So more than anything, it's just fun. It's just fun.
It's gone from you, and then obviously what happened in Edmonton with EST starting up. They're kind of taking the Rod Pedersen playbook and doing what they're doing too. So it's, you have done quite a bit over your career, Rod, and I'd love to see what you do, man. You may make me mad sometimes with some of the things you say, but you know what? I think it's just Rod. He's the cool guy.
I'm very rarely serious. You have to understand that. Anyway, Cliffy and I got out for supper a couple of times. I think there's a few times, Cliffy, you or even Minot looked at me like, did he really just say that? And then I just say it to get a reaction. I don't care. Look, we are not curing cancer here, guys, in the sports business. You have to understand something. And I think that's because, the sports people are never going to figure that out, or the fans. But again, I do interventions on meth addicts and raging alcoholics. That is some serious stuff. That's what gets my palms sweaty and my heart racing. Sports just doesn't really anymore. It's fun, but it's not life. It's not life and death. What I say earlier, this is supposed to be entertainment. So that's, I think a lot of people are afraid to, I know they are afraid to say what they think, because I have a lot of mainstream broadcasters say to me, God, I wish I could be like you and say whatever I want. And I'm like, well, you just wouldn't have a job for very long, And the other thing is, I had never planned to ever do play-by-play again, because by the end, the team was basically giving me a script to read. And I'm like, in some cases, it was lies. And I'm like, I won't do this. I can't do this. I can't do it. I don't want to do it. And I was afraid every outfit was getting to be like that. But calling baseball this summer with young NCAA athletes, I didn't plan to get close with the players, and dag nabbit, I have, and their families. But it's a board-run team. Nobody's telling me what to say. I'm not stirring up any crap. It's fun again. And I just want to have fun doing this. It should be. That's why we all got into it.
Exactly. As they say, nobody gets out of life alive. So
Right.
have the most fun with it.
Yeah, exactly, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And also, too, I can appreciate, you blazing the trail for even people like us. I mean, like this past year at Grey Cup, we were given all kinds of access. Now, maybe it's because the Alouettes were in the Grey Cup, and as a result, they wanted to make sure they got as much coverage as possible from an Alouettes perspective. But same idea as you. We just took the ball and ran with it. See how far we can take this. And I mean, it's been a blast. And I can only imagine the fun that you're having doing your job each and every day, because what we were able to do is absolutely outstanding.
Well, you guys are the Alouette podcast, right?
100%.
Right. And by the way, that's the interesting thing that I've never figured out. I haven't spent a lot of time working for the teams, but you have the name I'm looking at, Alouettes Flightdeck Podcast. They could have shut you down and not wanted you to use the name, but they didn't. And it's the same with us. I specifically called it the Cats and Bolts Podcast so that the Panthers and Lightning couldn't shut us down if they tried, but they haven't. They're like, take our logos, take our gear, wear our stuff. It's like, oh, really? Maybe it's where I came from. You couldn't do that. But so yeah, they've been really good for us too. So not every team runs the same. Let's put it that way.
That is true. I guess every team has their trials and tribulations when it comes to embracing this new media, if you will. Because, yeah, you're used to the radio, you're used to television, you're used to newspapers, but there's a whole other medium out there. And I think a lot of people are just now sort of waking up to the fact, despite the fact that it's 2024 and people have been doing this for decades now.
2004. I looked it up last week, was the first credited podcast. I can't remember what the guys' names were or what it was even about. But they said that's when it started, was 2004. So yeah, and the CFL, they've been great to work with too. It's a fun league. We love it, man. If we didn't, we wouldn't be doing it, right?
Yep.
From your lips to God's ears.
Rod, we really appreciate your time. We really appreciate your time. Obviously, we got to have you more often than we have. I mean, I think it's only the second or third time we've had him on, Cliffy. We got to have him on more. We got to have him on more, obviously, and it's not just necessarily the CFL and talk about the Alouettes or the Rough Riders. It's just about everything in general. And Rod, you're a top-notch guy, my friend. And obviously, if people haven't seen your show, where do they find it?
Thank you, Tim. And I'll say all those nice things back at you as well. I know I've respected your work for a long time. Rod Pedersen Show, Game Plus Television, every day, noon to 2 Eastern, and on YouTube. But I just got to say this. I was two Montreal guys. Give me a second here. One was Chris Nyland. I was sitting in his living room watching the Stanley Cup Final in 2021, and Habs were in it. And you remember the huge rallies you guys had downtown Montreal? And I wanted to go to that. And Nyland was like, we're not going down there. Just watch it here on my TV. And I said, Knuckles, I got a show on here. He's like, I know. I watch it every day. He waved at the TV. Chris Nyland, which I thought was really cool. Videotron is his cable carrier. And then the other one is Chris Milo's dad, Franco. I don't know the area of Montreal that he lives in, but I've also been at his house. I just don't know the area. And I ran into Franco. It might have been that same trip. And he goes, I watch your show every day. He's got that, that Italian-French mix that they have in Montreal. And I said, well, Frank, why don't you write in if you know him at all? He's a big, loud French-Italian guy. And he goes, who writes the TV? I don't write the TV. I just watch the TV. And I'm like, well, thank you, Franco. So yeah, it's on Game Plus TV. And that's when I'm on the air every day, I think of it as being a TV show, not a podcast, but it's that too. So anyway, sorry for the story. Sorry to get derailed. But.
No worries. Yeah. That's you have so much history behind you, Rod. We're more than welcome to give you more than a couple of minutes. You know that.
Old. Yes. Old. Nice way of saying old.
Well, again, everybody, make sure you do catch the show every day during the week. He has a lot to talk about, and make sure you give him a follow. He is on social media too. I think it's the Rod Pedersen Show, right? On X.
And my own is at Rod Pedersen for everything I do outside the show. Yeah, which is also a lot, as you pointed out. So yeah, thanks guys. Always good.
Hey,
Once again, Rod, knocked it out of the park. We appreciate you so much, and all the best. Keep continued success, not just CFL wise or baseball wise or whatever it is that you're touching right now. Make sure you're the best at it. We know you will be.
Thank you, guy. I'm going to try it for sure. Enjoy the game Friday.
Yeah.
It's been a while since we've had him on the show, Cliff, but usually when you're talking with Rod, I know we spoke a little bit about the upcoming matchup, stuff like that. But with with the pedigree that Rod has, you have to talk, everything CFL with him, no matter what it is.
Absolutely, yeah. It's been too long, and we're going to make sure that doesn't happen again. Way too long since we've had Roddy on to sit and talk ball, talk about not just talk about the Riders necessarily, even though he's, as you said, the former voice of the Riders. So I mean that was his claim to CFL fame. But he's well versed in everything CFL. He's well versed in everything sports too. I mean, like the guy's just like. I liken him to the sort of like the Stephen A. Smith, if you will, for Canada. Like, not afraid to share his opinion, not afraid to, poke the bear, if you will, just to kind of, get that discussion going. Like he likes to stir the drink a little bit, and I like that about Rod. He's always entertaining, always informed. He knows what's up. I mean, just so thankful that we were able to have him on tonight to not just talk about the Riders Alouettes game coming up on Friday, but just talk about everything in general. So once again, Roddy, thank you so much for joining us here on the Alouettes Flight Deck. You're welcome here anytime you want.
Yes, sir. Let's go over a little bit of news here, Cliff, before we go talk about a little bit of our preview of the game itself. One thing I wanted to comment about, and I know it's kind of 2 weeks old, but not really when you consider what's happening with what happened at the end of the Ottawa game with Ottawa Saskatchewan game with the command center. So I happened to reach out to and speak with Coach Moss at the end of the game on Saturday, and just wanted to find out because prior to that past weekend when it occurred, Commissioner Ambrosi was on the this prior to last week's the week before. Commissioner Ambrosi was on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers pregame show, and he had mentioned some things where if there's an issue, he speaks with two of the guys that are when it comes to football ops and to rules. And they make sure that they reach out to the teams whenever they feel, when they feel something egregious has occurred and that they haven't gotten right. So, and they said, they make sure they send a letter or whatever to it is. So I happened to ask Coach just about that one thing. And what I can tell you for reasons is that they did come to the conclusion that, yes, there was a screw up, but they stood by what their ruling was on the original Tuck fumble in Hamilton. So it's nice to see that they are reaching out to the team. I obviously know Coach did not agree with what they told him, Cliff, and I know because you were there with me. Mm-hmm. But at least it's nice to see that what Ambrosi claimed that they did. They actually did do and reached out to the team to at least give some sort of explanation whether they agreed with it or not. Yeah,
just a simple, my bad. Like it's kind of how it came across, at least the way Coach Moss explained it to us. And, he let his feelings be known, and as well he should. I mean, it's a tough thing because obviously he was smart enough not to critique anything post-game. Like, you don't see anything in the papers or on the radio about, his what I'm sure what would have been his true opinions of what took place in Hamilton. He took the high road. He's let the league sort it out, and the fact that the league came to him and came to him and the entire organization after the fact, and as sort of a mea culpa, as I guess given points for effort, I suppose. But yeah,
But you got to admit, and I at least have to say this, at least openly, is that one of the funniest parts of that conversation was the off the record comment. We just laughed, and it stays off the record no matter what. And I don't care what people can DM me all they want. Sorry, this is one of the few things that
you had to be there.
Yeah, because I was just about to say that you had to be there.
And we're not going to talk out of turn, especially for Coach Moss. I mean, I'm sure if you ask him, he'll certainly share his opinion with you. That's just how he is. He wears his heart on his sleeve, and he's definitely not afraid to express himself. But at the same time, this was a comment that,
it was you're talking about before, how he said how he felt. He
Yeah.
said how he was feeling.
He said
About-
he said
about-
what he said, and he stood on business. So
There you go. Speaking of, and this just came over, it's just being talked about tonight. Speaking of the command center, it's very possible that there's going to be a slight update on how the command center does things. And that's really all that we've been hinted at, because we know that Dave Naylor was actually on, I think, the Green Zone in Regina this evening. You can go listen to the comment that he's talking about in the audio that's over on socials. I know we did tweet that out over at our social account over on X. And so stay tuned for the pregame show tomorrow night. That's what it sounds like. Well, we may hear an update on maybe there could be some modifications. I mean, are they going to do stuff live? I don't know. It would be nice to actually hear some voices in our heads, or hear their voices in their heads. But I get, yeah. So
that was some interesting phrasing.
I know. So watch tomorrow night. As I said, Dave Naylor has basically teased us to watch tomorrow night. So the rosters, Cliff, today has some very interesting roster moves over the past couple of days. Go over those, just to update. And that one that you and I talked about pregame, leave that one to last.
Okay. Well, as you no doubt know, Cody Fajardo has been at practice, despite the fact that Davis Alexander was not at practice due to personal reasons. We've got a sneaking suspicion of what the reason was, but we're not going to get into that because, that's not how we roll. But Cody Fajardo was a participant in practice, and all indications are he may be dressing for the game this Friday against Saskatchewan. Not starting. They haven't named the starter yet, and truthfully, I don't see any scenario where Davis Alexander is not starting this game for the Alouettes. But until we get the depth charts out, I mean, we can speculate. So,
yep, stay tuned to our socials for that tomorrow.
Yeah. There were a couple of.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say there were a couple of practice roster moves that were made. Interestingly enough, James Morgan, who is our fourth string quarterback, he's been moved to the practice roster. So again, you do the math. Yeah. 3 quarterbacks can dress in a game, so that's Davis Alexander, Dominique Davis, short yardage specialist, and all indications with a move like that means Cody Fajardo will be dressing for the game on Friday. And I guess if, God forbid, Davis Alexander and Dominique Davis go down to injury, Cody's going to go in and play. So will he or won't he play in Saskatchewan, I guess, is going to be the $64,000 question.
Mm-hmm.
All indications tell me, though, that it's Davis's team for the time being. Even if Cody's dressed and quote-unquote ready to go, I still think it's going to be Davis's game, barring injury.
Yeah.
Also being added to the main roster is Tyson Otis Copeland. As a result of the injury to Najee Murray. Once again, we still haven't gotten all the details on that, so I'm going to say possibly Najee is on the 1-game list for this Friday, and Tyson Otis Copeland is going to be replacing him in the secondary. A couple other small moves. Vincent DeLille and Moshin Jamal, the 2 last draft picks for the Alouettes this year in 2024. They've been released in order for them to go back to school. They'll be going back to their respective schools. I believe for them it's their 5th year, so they'll have an opportunity to get some actual playing time for their respective universities. That's University of Laval for DeLille and Western University for Jamal.
Mm-hmm.
And David Vereen also has been transferred to the practice roster after coming in relief for Najee Murray. So it's, once again, we're back to making moves. Again, still a couple things are up in the air, but until we see the depth chart, folks, you can speculate all you want as to which direction the Alouettes are going to go, at least on the defensive side of the ball, because there's a lot of guys that are going to be coming back sooner rather than later, and you got to make room for them, simply put.
Yeah, exactly. Any other news? So before we get to
with the injury to Tyson Philpott, a lot of people want to know what's going on with one Austin Mack, who has been chasing his NFL dream down south. He had signed a contract with the Atlanta Falcons, and this past Monday, the Falcons took a look at their Canadian or their CFL connections with the team and decided, sorry guys, it's not going to work out. Releasing Nathan Rourke, who was signed as quarterback, I think 10 days before, and also releasing Austin Mack. Now, everybody wants to know, is Austin Mack going to come back to the Alouettes? He could. He could, because he is still technically property of the Alouettes. He did have a contract with the Alouettes. He just exercised his NFL option to go down south and try to see if he can catch on with, in this case, the Falcons. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, with him being released, does that mean he automatically comes back? And he might, but I think Austin is going to try and exhaust all of his NFL options first, see if somebody does pick him up. I mean, preseason is still going on. Like, the first week of preseason just finished, so it's kind of a tough spot, really, when you think about it, because unless someone has a glaring need for a receiver, they may still be trying to evaluate their own receivers before they go and they add someone else. So Austin could be kind of in limbo right now, and depending on how he feels, he may decide to wait it out, or he just may say, I want to be playing. I need to be on a football field. In which case, then yeah, there's no doubt in my mind he would come back to the Montreal Alouettes. I know Danny Machocha has said that he would love to have Austin back. There's, they'd be all set for him to go. There would be money set aside in the cap for his salary. I mean, if Austin's decided he wants to forget about the NFL and stay in Montreal and have develop a career here, there's no doubt in my mind the Alouettes would do everything they can to make that happen and make sure he stays an Alouette for a long time. So,
I mean, what was that BC money that they used on work?
Marketing money, which is the new buzz term, I guess.
Yep, that could be done for Austin Mack too, because considering what it was rumored that his new contract was going to be, or they were going to tear up his rookie contract, and it was reported, I think it was like $250,000 a year. So we'll see, right?
Yeah, and listen, you want to talk marketing? That's the guy to market, because I mean, he was just an absolute beast last year. His first year in the league, he was absolutely phenomenal. Was a major part of the Alouettes going to and winning the Grey Cup. So if Tyson Philpott's going to be out long term, which we sincerely hope not, obviously the Alouettes are going to have to figure something out as far as trying to. I won't say replace. I don't like saying replace when it comes to someone like that, but who can step in and fill that role for Tyson Philpott? There's no question in my mind that an Austin Mack could do that just as easily, and like Dominique Davis, he'd be back like he never left. There's no doubt in my mind that Austin Mack could come back onto this team and just keep on rolling with everybody else.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. It's just a couple of roster moves, Cliff, can perk up Alouette supporters like that, right?
Big time. I mean, listen, we're wondering about this upcoming match against Saskatchewan. It was supposed to be the Jilted Lovers Bowl, as I keep calling it, with Cody Fajardo versus Trevor Harris playing each other's teams for the first time since joining. As it stands right now, as I said, Cody Fajardo, there's a very good chance he will be in Saskatchewan and he will be in a uniform, but he won't be. He may not be playing, barring something catastrophic. Trevor Harris, on the other hand, for Saskatchewan, looks like he's ready to. All indications are he's going to be starting against the Alouettes. So that'll be his first time facing the Alouettes since deciding to go to Saskatchewan and do his thing there. So to me, I don't think this match needed marketability in the sense that, Fajardo versus Harris, but I like the idea of it being two of arguably the best teams in the Canadian Football League going at it. And I say that kind of with tongue in cheek a little bit, just because Saskatchewan's had a bit of a rough ride lately. I feel like the Alouettes broke them. I mean, after playing in Montreal, they go back home and they give Edmonton their first win of the year.
Yeah.
And then they go to Ottawa And you thought they lost the game, then they thought they won the game, and then they end up with a tie against the Red Blacks. So they're winless in their last 3. I think they're, I don't think there's reason to panic yet in Saskatchewan, but at the same time, I think they're going to be very glad to have Trevor Harris back behind center, because when he hasn't played very much for the Riders, but when he has played, he's played extremely well. And I think they're itching to see him back in the lineup and seeing what he can do against this absolutely dangerous Alouettes defense.
Yeah. Also, the same thing too is that they're going to get the Riders are going to have AJ Ouellette back too. So again, we don't know what the status is. You just go and you look at the injured reports. It shows who is currently available, and both Harris and Ouellette are available. Obviously, you check the ones for the Alouettes too. There are a couple of guys who won't be on there, but we don't expect Tyson Philpott to be on there at all. So and by the looks of things with James Morgan, as Cliffy stated earlier, James Morgan being placed on the practice roster, he has to. Cody will be on the depth chart. Just depends on where he'll be on the depth chart. And as you and I are speculating, it probably will be 3.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, as far as emergency quarterback goes, I don't know currently who would be the emergency quarterback if you needed someone to do it. I mean, it's funny. It looked like at one point during the game last week against Hamilton, James Lesher looked like he was ready to throw a pass. And
I know.
I like try for a gadget play, which would have been hilarious all by itself. Because I mean, James Lesher is what, 5'5"? Could you imagine him lining up behind center for the Alouettes as quarterback?
Mm-hmm.
If he's the emergency quarterback, again, no knock on James, because I think he's absolutely a phenomenal player and an outstanding human being. But if he's our emergency, if he's our ultimately our 4th-string quarterback or emergency backup quarterback, oh boy, we might be in trouble.
Yeah, I don't think he's smaller than Flutie, so. I thought that
Flutie would look like Shaq next to him, like as far as height goes.
Yeah, what I thought was interesting too, by the way, is the note, and this is why we're talking about Cody. And I don't know. I mean, do you find it a surprise that Cody's going to be active? Because I mean, it's kind of like we got a little bit more information about the Cody situation with the Matthew Shinetti tweet this week, where this is almost verbatim. Okay. Where he goes, Cody says he's moving through his dropbacks and stepping into throws without any hamstring issues. Hamstring was torn, but an unaffected tendon has allowed him to practice. That puts a lot more perspective on what we actually knew about Cody's situation. But I think we knew from when he first pulled up, we knew it was bad.
We knew it was bad. And once again, the team is not going to tip their hand to giving any sort of details as far as the injury goes. Just that it was his hamstring. That was it. But was it a pulled hamstring, which we were hoping for, if that's what the case was, or a tear? I mean, a torn hamstring sounds really bad. I mean, that sounds like something you need surgery, and surgery means 6-game list, which Cody was on initially, but pulled off after 1 week. So like, it was just such a confusing sort of era when it comes to this particular injury for Fajardo. I mean, like, part of me wants to say, just spit it out. Just tell us what's going on. But obviously,
it's gamemanship. I get it. I mean, because it's like sometimes you'll see the press game, the post practice scrum this week that was available by the Alouettes on YouTube. You see what he said, what Coach wow, how cool he was. What Coach Moss said. Then there's what Danny Matrocha said. He said some stuff too, and it was, almost, if you go back and you check the story that we retweeted from TSN, he was gave a little bit more information when it came to Tyson, where he goes, I don't see Tyson. That's not verbatim, but it'll be a while before Tyson's back on the field. I'm paraphrasing here. So,
or we'll miss some time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So anyways, I mean, it's, again, with this next man up stuff, I can't wait. And it should be a fun game. Before we finish up the preview stuff, I want to remind everybody that we are on social media. We're in many places. If you want to reach out to us over on X, you can do so at Alouettes FL-Deck. If you want to reach, just watching you do that's hilarious. Vanna, to go over to Facebook at Alouettes Flightdeck Pod, Instagram and YouTube, that is at Alouettes Flightdeck. If you want to check out our archive, you can do so at alouettesflightdeck.ca and check out our merchandise shop over at flightdeckgear.ca. By the way, over on YouTube, not only can you find the audio version of this podcast, you can also find the video version, and you can also find our post-game show, Flight Deck Live, which, excuse me, we will be back with after the game versus Saskatchewan.
Yeah, so make sure you like, you comment, subscribe, do all those things to make sure that you're in tune with us. Make sure that you get that hit that notification bell so that you know that when we do go live, you know you're gonna get all of us. And if you're following us on X as well, you'll be able to watch the post game live there as well. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're following us. Pretty much follow us everywhere you can on social media, even on Twitch. You can check out Flight Deck Live.
Yeah, and that'll be, it won't be live. It will be on tape delay. So you will be able to see it there if you do happen to miss it. So you have 4 different ways of being able to watch the post game show. So
no excuses, folks. If you got to tune in, there's plenty of ways for you to be able to enjoy this. So please come along for the ride for us.
Yeah, exactly. The line itself, Cliff, for the game is the Alouettes are currently now 1.5 half-point favorites. The over/under is 50.5, and this is by the FanDuel Sportsbook. You and I talked about this earlier off air, and you feel that that line itself may be a little low, but with me looking at the possibility of who's going to be under center for Saskatchewan, having the different running back, and the missing pieces currently on the wide receiving, at least what the bettors feel are missing pieces for the Alouettes wide receiving core, I guess that kind of makes sense why that line is lower than you expected.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, again, I do feel like in a lot of ways both of these teams are evenly matched. So in a case like that, it becomes a pick 'em, so to speak. And basically, 1.5 point favorite is more or less a pick 'em. I mean, however you slice it. But yeah, I think with the quarterback situation being what it is, as I said, a lot of people were hoping for Fajardo versus Harris. It may end up just being Harris versus Alexander, which would also be kind of interesting because they were in training camp together at one point for the Alouettes.
Yep.
As we talked about, Trevor Harris decided back last year that he didn't like the current situation. He didn't like the situation that the Alouettes were in, as far as the ownership issues and that. And he just said, you know what? I know you built everything around me more or less. You hired Jason Motch to coach me and all that jazz, but I'm out of here. And hey, listen, can't fault the guy. Can't fault him for securing the bag, as they say, and getting into what would be a prime situation out in Saskatchewan. The problem is, though, he just keeps getting hurt, and as Rod said, earlier, he's missed 19 of 27 games during his time in Saskatchewan. I mean, that's tough. I mean, yes, when he has played, he's looked like the Trevor Harris that we all know. He's definitely sharp. He's finding his receivers. He definitely makes the good reads and all that. And I think that Saskatchewan fans are clamoring to have someone that with that kind of stability back in the lineup. I mean, nothing against Shea Patterson, but Shea's had a chance to prove himself over the past few weeks and hasn't looked. Let's just say that Trevor Harris wasn't having a sleepless nights in Saskatchewan as far as his job goes. Like they were going to rush him back because of it, but I think he was just biding his time. And now, if he's ready to go, he's going to come into this game, and I'm sure he's motivated as well to take on the Alouettes as well. I mean, I don't see a revenge sort of thing. I don't think there's any of that narrative for Trevor Harris, but you still want to test yourself against the best, right? And ultimately, Montreal Alouettes right now are the best team in the Canadian Football League. So you want to prove that you can hang with the big boys, and that's exactly what Trevor is going to do on Friday.
Yep, exactly. It should be a good game. Again, stay tuned for Flight Deck Live. It'll probably be about 15 minutes post when clock strikes 0. So give or take based on when the kickoff is, expect us, I would say, anywhere between 12 and 12:15 a.m. But stay tuned to all of our Eastern time. So stay tuned to all of our socials for the post game show. Find out when it is. But other than that,
notification bell, folks. Hit it.
Exactly. Again, we got a lot more to talk about. Obviously, next week's gonna be fun show to talk about because we're leading up to the 50th anniversary celebration for that 1974 Grey Cup team, and we hope to have something for you guys next week. But other than that, we hope you guys enjoy the game. We thank you for joining us on the for downloading, listening, watching the show this week, and obviously a big shout out to Rod Pedersen for joining us on the show also. So, Cliff, I will talk to you soon, my friend. So for everybody here at the Alouettes Flight Deck, for Cliffy D, I'm Tim Capper. We're on Final Approach.